Want to find out what the best ball strikers know about compression that perhaps you don't? Of course you do. So today we're going to have a look at what compression is, how you can possibly lose compression in your shots, and more importantly, what you can do to go about gaining it and hitting those magical shots that feel and sound really great. Hi, I'm Peter Knight, and I've created this channel, Peter Knight Golf, to help you play the best golf you possibly can. Today we're going to have a look at this idea of compression. So let's look at it from a start point. Now we'll talk about it from all shots, but initially I'm going to talk about iron shots and shots where the ball's sitting on the ground. Now the first thing is to look at how we actually go about creating this centered contact and what it means. We need to make contact with the ground first. Now just to explain that, the center of my club face is up around about the 4th or 5th score line here. Now if I hold this ball so that the bottom of the ball and the bottom of the club are both at ground level, then the ball contact point is around about the 2nd or 3rd score line. Now if I allow my shaft to lean forward, now I'm going to exaggerate this, but as I allow the shaft to lean forward, now the contact point's rolling up the face a little bit, so it's not quite as low as what it was before. That means that if I'm going to contact the ball around about the 4th or 5th score line, not only do I need to have a little bit of forward shaft lean, but I need to allow the club to go into the ground a little bit. And of course that will then enable me to hit the ball off the center of the club face. So it becomes pretty clear that when I'm striking the ball, I definitely need to make that ground contact. Ideally, I'll hit the ball on the ground at the same time, and then my club will be in contact with the ground afterwards. And that's why with all good shots, you'll see that the ball is struck and the divot is taken after the shot. Now one other thing that helps us a little bit is that when I strike the ball, because the club's got loft on it, then the ball will move slightly up the club face, not far, but again it's just to help us to get backspin and also to help with that centered contact. So a couple of ideas that we need to look at. First of all, if I just sort of mimic impact, so when I strike the ball, my body's forward and my hands are slightly ahead of the club head. So I've got some forward shaft lean of somewhere around about 5 to 10 degrees. Now, how do we go about achieving that? A couple of little drill concepts to get the feel of. If I hold my club here, so my arms are just sort of hanging quite freely in front of my body. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my arms back to about here and through to about here. Now when I get to the end of range, so move my arms back to here, the club head wants to keep going, and you can see that there was a little bit of hinging that occurred there. Now that's the club acting on my hands, not me doing something with my hands. Very big difference. Now, and when I do change direction, the club wants to continue going back. So as well as my arms slowing and the club continuing and creating a little bit of a hinge here, there's a little bit more of a hinge created when I change direction. Now if I make this motion continuously in both directions, you can see it creates a fishtailing motion. Now I'm not exaggerating it, I'm not creating this big rolling movement, I'm not losing control of the movement as the club goes back and through, but I'm just creating this soft fishtailing motion. Now at some point, as the club swings through, it's going to swing into line with my arm here, my left arm. Now what I want to do is time the motion, so I'm not holding or forcing anything here. I'm timing the motion so the club catches up to being in line with my left arm when my hands are here. Now that's about maybe just outside my left shoe here. Now the thing with creating this motion is it's actually my body which is moving my arms. So I'm not standing here keeping my body still and just moving my arms. My body movement, you can see my body's now moving. So the body's rotation is actually creating that whole movement. Now when I do that, you can also see that I've got pressure shifting from foot to foot. So these are all of the elements that we want in the golf swing itself. So I've got this fishtailing feel, club trailing, and then catching up through here. Now, a couple of things about the order of movement. Really critically, I need my lower body to actually lead the movement. So if I'm making that same movement now down at ground level, I'll allow the club to swing back, I change direction, and you can see when I change direction, the club actually hinges more. So this is exactly what I was doing when I was standing upright. And then if we look at the order of movement, my lower body is moving first as I'm starting down. In fact, my lower body actually begins to move toward the target before I get to the end of the backswing. Now, first thing to do is to practice that with really short shots. And there you can see that the club's caught the grass and taken some grass away just after I struck the ball. Now, a really good way to practice this is going into a bunker and doing the following drill. So this drill here is perfect for having a look at where your contact point is. And we do it in the sand because it's going to leave a very distinctive mark. So the way that I'm going to do the drill is I'll mark a line in the sand with my club, and starting with really small swings, what I'm looking to do is have my club enter the sand right on the start line of that mark there. So if I make a little swing and I have the club catching up to my hands too early, I'm either going to miss the sand completely or I'll hit behind it. I need to make sure that I've got all of the other elements that I've talked about, which is balance going forward and my hands leading the club to the ground there so that I can hit the sand in the right spot. So again, it doesn't matter which club I've got a 7-iron here, but if I make that short little swing and then I have a look at that point there, because I've used my hands, my club's hit the ground too early. Now I can sort of move along the line, so I'll start here, make a short shot, club's hitting right on the line, and right on the line again. So getting the feel of that, how I'm playing those shots, the feel of coordinating the motion so I'm getting that descending blow is going to make a massive difference to my ability to strike the ball correctly. Not like the first one when my hands are activated. Other things that can occur that are going to cause me to hit the ground behind the ball like I did with the first one is also my balance staying back. So these things are going to be highlighted when you do this drill. So let's have a look at ways in which this idea of compression, which is essentially involves coordination, good coordination, which leads to forward shaft lean and also allows the body to lead. Let's have a look at the things that can really upset it. These are really common. If I try and use my hands to hit at the ball, to get the ball up in the air, the club will catch up to and pass my hands very, very early. So that's the first thing. The second thing is when I swing through, if I allow, and this is sort of related to what I just mentioned, but if I allow my left wrist here to bend this way, so my wrist is moving this way through impact, which seems logical that if I'm hitting the ball where it's sitting on the ground, I want to get it up in the air, I want to use my wrist to do that. But of course I don't really, because that's going to create a scoopy action. So one way that I can do that is, again, as I go back, I'm just going to make sure, exaggeratedly so for the moment, that when I swing the club back to here, if I allow my wrist to bend a tiny bit this way, now I've exaggerated that, so that as I swing down, if my wrist moves into flexion this way, it's obviously the opposite to what I would be doing if it goes the other way into extension. Now when I do that, looking from front on, I've moved my wrist here, so even if I'm making a small movement, now my hands are a long way ahead of the ball. Now that's too much, but it does give me this idea that if my wrist is a tiny bit bent this way, it's going to be a lot better off for helping me hit good shots. If my wrist moves the other way, which is really common, then that's going to result in mishit shots. I'm not going to hit the center of the club face, and I'll really struggle to hit the ground in the right spot. It's very easy for me to either miss the ground or to hit the ground behind the ball. So practicing these ideas and then moving into bigger and bigger shots, you start to get that feel where you're striking the ball off the center of the club face, it's flying nicely, sounds great, and again, we've got that divot after the ball. So practice doing these things, the bunker drill, getting the feel of that fishtailing movement, and you'll find that your ball striking is going to massively improve.